Hi, Erika. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for agreeing to this interview with Kidki. As we communicated earlier, our aim is to present information about various career options in science and technology for helping students make informed career decisions. Since you have an interesting career trajectory starting as a mechanical engineer and now having your own startup, we would like to present your story and career trajectory. So, would you like to start with a quick introduction about your current work?
Yeah, so I run a startup company called Accelerate Wind. And what Accelerate Wind is doing is trying to make wind energy generation possible on commercial buildings. So today, you see lots of solar on commercial buildings. It's great that the rooftop solar market's doing really well, but you don't really see much wind, and that's just because it's way too expensive. And so our company's developed a technology that makes it actually affordable to generate wind energy on rooftops. The way that we do that is we take advantage of the fact that wind speeds are naturally faster at the edges of roofs. And so we have a technology that it sounds simple, but there's a lot that goes into it. But the technology lets us take advantage of that faster wind speed and capture it as it goes over the building so we can produce more power more economically. Um, we've been at it for about 3 years. I'll tell you more about it throughout this interview, I'm sure. Are kind of at the point where we're starting to put out some pilot projects and really prove out the technology and everything.
Interesting. So, what motivated you to build your own startup project?
So I kind of always had a vision that it would be something that would be useful to do. But I worked in the corporate world for a little while after graduating. I have an engineering background and got to work on a lot of really cool things, leading some projects on like energy, water, and waste technologies, and kind of built my confidence that I could do the technical side of things, but really wanted to make a big impact in sustainability and realized that if I if I was the one kind of fighting for the product that we were building, it was more likely to go forward and scale than it would in a big organization when there's lots of different motivations and people pulling strings for one reason or another. And so I was really drawn to that because I could be more intentional about the type of impact I wanted to create. And obviously still while making money because that's the point of a business. But yeah, it kind of gave me a chance to do a little bit more in that way. Um,
Nice. So, you mentioned rooftop wind energy in the introduction about your work. So, what was the motivation for you to work on rooftop wind energy generation? And why should students think about technologies like rooftop wind energy generation and how does it compare to other sustainable energy sources?
yeah, so actually when I started the company, I was spending a lot of time thinking about kind of the unintended consequences of some of our energy technologies, in particular, looking at this concept called the rebound effect, where if people add something to a building or to wherever that generates more energy efficiency, oftentimes people use that as an excuse for like, okay, cool, I did my green thing. I bought my Prius car, or or Tesla, I guess these days, or whatever. Now I can go, I don't know, fly on a plane for vacation or something. That's called the rebound effect because then energy efficiency can actually cause more energy to be used overall in some circumstances. And so I was kind of wrestling with that and was really inspired by some groups I saw in the Netherlands who were looking at it more holistically and helping buildings try to get to actually like net zero energy. And I found that in these cases, when building owners were thinking about the bigger picture of their energy consumption, they were also able to like think about those trades more readily and be more connected to where their energy was coming from and be less likely to have that kind of rebound. And so I just had this idea for wind turbines. It was not really inspired by much of anything. I was literally staring at buildings one day and was wondering if there was an increased wind speed over the edge of roofs, and went back and did the research and saw that there was enough that it was worthwhile to pursue. And was really into the mission of just kind of bringing people closer to their energy sources. So it kind of came from there.
Good. So going little bit back, would you like to talk about your career trajectory,
Sure.
starting from undergraduate?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and I was always kind of into engineering, more less for the technology, even though I enjoy creating technology, and more to think about impact, because technology just has such a huge impact on the world. And so I studied mechanical engineering, but was kind of naturally drawn to energy technologies and sustainability, just kind of because it's one of the big impact questions that we're all trying to answer right now. And so spent a lot of time in undergrad taking sustainability classes and just trying to build up my expertise in energy technologies. And then took a job right out of college that ended up letting me work. Actually didn't think it was going to let me work on a lot of energy technologies. I was at a defense contractor, and it was a good learning experience, but I didn't know I was going to be working on energy. But they kind of noticed my interest in that field, and I ended up getting kind of funneled into projects that were actually a really good fit for me. And so the first project I got to work on was a project to help the military to convert their trash to electricity in the battlefield, because they were just burning it, and it was like just like very polluting and bad for soldiers' health. And so we got to work on totally new concepts for taking military's trash and converting it to electricity instead, in a way that didn't cause harmful health effects. And so I get to work on a bunch of cool projects like that, from kind of the system level. I was like, even though I have a mechanical engineering background, I ended up doing kind of a mix between mechanical and electrical, and studying what the customer's needs were. So kind of entrepreneurial, but within a bigger company. And that was a really good learning experience. Kind of, I think I said before, kind of got my confidence up in my engineering abilities. So it was good to get that practice. And then I realized that I still had a lot of these like bigger impact questions. And so I left my corporate job and applied for a scholarship to go do a master's in the Netherlands. And the master's was studying a field called society, science, and technology. So studying how technology affects the world and how the world determines what technologies get accepted. And I focus really around sustainability in this, trying to understand like what impact can I make and how. So it was kind of like a year of philosophy, while I was trying to think about kind of purpose and everything. And I had thought about a lot about that, and was kind of working on my next steps. And it seemed like the master's was done. I always had thought about starting a company, and seemed like a good time to do it, since I wasn't tied to any job or anything. So just kind of went for it. I loved the Netherlands and wanted to stay there a little bit longer too. And so I got to join an entrepreneurship program there, and learn from some people there as well. So it was a good kind of bridge between the masters and where I am now.
So first of all, what inspired you to pursue undergrad in mechanical engineering?
Yeah, it was, like I said, I'd always enjoyed math and science, um, but and been like pretty decent at it. But what actually convinced me to do engineering, because I applied to a lot of schools that had engineering and a bunch of other things. I thought about music. I thought about a bunch of other careers. But what actually convinced me was talking to some people at the college that I went to about just how much impact technology has on the world. Technology just has so much power these days. And so when I was thinking about how to make an impact, I realized I kind of wanted to be involved in that conversation one way or another. And I chose a school that had a pretty impact oriented focus as well. So that gave me some space to explore that and think about impact. But yeah, that's what drew me to mechanical engineering. Is just it's all shaping the world. Uh,
Okay. So you worked in corporate job after your undergrad, and after that you decided to leave the corporate job. So what were your reasons to pursue masters in philosophy after that job?
yeah, I just had so many questions about how the world worked. I was always I was like an engineer, but also a philosopher naturally, or social scientist, or I don't know what word you want to use, but I really have trouble not thinking about the bigger picture. And so I'd spend all my free time thinking about, like, okay, I'm building these technologies. What do they actually mean? Is it actually going to be useful? Is it like, is there a better way to make an impact? How do we, as a society, transition to a world that's more sustainable? Um, what are the best methods? How should I really be working on this? And so I couldn't let those questions go. And I wanted to travel as well. I'd always been really passionate about getting to know other cultures and hadn't had as many travel experiences as I'd wanted in my life yet. So I decided to combine those two and do masters in the Netherlands. It was a very good decision. One of the best years of my life. Just a year spent thinking and like being really intellectually engaged. My classmates were from 18, or there were 18 students from 13 different countries. And so just getting challenged by lots of different perspectives, both studying social science for the first time and meeting people from different cultures and everything. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the rewards of doing masters in philosophy, but would you like to elaborate more on the challenges and rewards of pursuing masters in philosophy?
Oh yeah, there's lots of challenges. The main one is I was looking for answers, and I think like many fields, when you really get into them, my master's was really better at giving me more questions than answers, making me realize how complex the world actually was. So that while useful and making me like kind of have a bigger picture perspective and be like more tolerant, just realizing how complex everything was. Didn't always give me the concrete answers that I wanted when thinking about impact. It just gave me kind of a new perspective to look at the world and kind of understand the complexity of things, and that could be helpful in business too, because the field kind of showed how things kind of can happen chaotically and unexpectedly, which when you're running a business also happens all the time, and you have to be ready for um, yeah, ready for unexpected change and how to deal with that. So kind of prepped me for that as well.
Mhm. What aspects of your earlier degrees and training have assisted you as your current role as a CEO of your startup?
Yeah, my undergrad college that I went to was wonderful at really making sure that all students, even from like the first day, were really involved in like group projects that were where we were designing things together. And that was extremely beneficial because I think one of the hardest things in general about even corporate life, not even just entrepreneurship, is just learning how to work with people on teams and to dive into unknown problems where you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Um, and just being confident that you can dive in and figure it out. So a lot of that kind of group project problem solving, reflecting on team issues as they came up, and trying to learn from them. That was a really good experience. And then yeah, the corporate job was also really useful, and learning, getting some more perspective for how business works and how big organizations work. And then also for giving me a good amount of discipline too. I think when you're in school, you kind of make your own hours. You have classes to show up to, but it's not. Um, you also kind of have like things. You can take more breaks, and you also kind of have things like structured for you as well. So getting the discipline in like a slightly less structured environment in the corporate world was also a really useful skill, because now as like CEO, I have to set that discipline for the team and for myself, which is you don't realize how much effort that takes until all the structure that's been set for you before in your life is suddenly gone. I think that's something a lot of people realize. So that was really useful as well. Also, just again to give me confidence that it was possible to build things. Um,
Nice. So, have you worked in interdisciplinary collaborations or in collaboration with academic research labs while building your startup? and how important have these been in building your startup?
Yeah, actually, our startup has had a really unique trajectory because one of the first things that happened to us is we got a grant from the Department of Energy to do work with scientists at Argonne National Lab in Chicago. So I don't know if that's quite an academic research institute, but it's pretty close. So it's a government run research institute, mostly PhDs who are experts in their field studying energy technologies. And so, actually, for the last 2.5 years, we've been completely embedded in the lab in the work that we're doing and working with scientists who are experts in aerodynamics or wind turbine reliability or wind prediction um, to really help us refine the technology. It's and use their expertise, which has been great. We have a prototype running on the roof of their lab right now. That's been like our first prototype that's been up for about a year now, and that's been really useful, especially since we're designing something that has a lot of pieces to it, and I'm not going to be the expert in every single one of those pieces. It's just not possible. So the working with the lab gave us a whole ton of experts to talk to about different parts of the technology, um, and I think develop a much more reliable turbine as a result, faster than we would have otherwise. So that's been awesome. We've had some other small collaborations too. We're working with Rochester Institute of Technology on a few things. They actually have like a manufacturing planning lab that we've done a little bit of work with. But mostly it's been our work at Argonne that's been really impactful.
So, continuing with that, what are the strategies for finding funding for science and technology based startup ideas?
So we've um, really taken one route that's possible. There's a bunch of different possible routes here, but we've realized that we have a technology that we're developing that's complex and will take a long time. And so for the first several years, we mostly pursued small business innovation research grants in order to fund the technology. So the U.S. Department of Energy and U.S. National Science Foundation has funded a lot of our work, and they're pretty comfortable in like the early research phases. When traditional investors would really want you to like have more of the science proven out before they're willing to invest science or sales cycle or whatever. And so we've been really fortunate to get some good grants that have been really helpful for that. There's a lot of money out there if you're looking for it. So that's one possible strategy. Other people go straight for like venture investment and looking for investors who are bought in to their mission. There's benefits to that too. Applying for grants takes a lot of time, and so if you have a ready investor, that's also a good way to go. Um, I feel like I'm missing some options, but those are the two at least main options that are out there. There's a lot of support programs though.
Mhm. Since we are talking about business development, did you have any prior experience in business development or did you learn it on the job?
Yeah, I mostly learned it on the job. I think my corporate job was a little bit like it taught me a lot about business development because I was actively working with customers to try to understand their needs before we built the technology. But a lot of the like particular financial modeling pieces of business was something that I just learned as we were going through the program. Our program at the national lab was also kind of an entrepreneurial training program for scientists to get you ready for really launching a product. And so we've gotten a lot of help from different mentors there and everything. But it's all totally learnable. I feel like a lot of engineers probably think that they like don't have the skills to figure this stuff out. And you totally do. Like engineering is about problem solving most of the time, and so is business. And a lot of it's just taking your problem solving skills and listening to potential customers and making sure that you're building something that meets their needs, and then doing calculations around the money equation.
Yeah. Did you have a mentor or mentors that influenced your career, especially during the early phase of your startup?
Yeah, we had one mentor at the very beginning of our startup when I had no idea what I was doing, and I was working alone at that point. And he was very useful at. He worked with us like a couple times a week for like 3 or 4 months, and was very useful at just like helping me find the structure I needed to like investigate the problems that we needed to solve, and kind of push me in the right direction. And so that little bit of structure from somebody who'd been through it before was very useful. So uh, yeah, that mentor was very influential. Not talking about the startup, but in undergrad, I also had a professor who taught our sustainability class and kind of made me realize all of the challenges that the world is having, and got me distraught enough to want to try to solve them. So that was also very influential.
Do you have any advice for the students for transitioning from a corporate job to entrepreneurship?
Um, don't be afraid of it. That would be one piece of advice. Is I think a lot of people think that they don't know if they can do it, and I think there's, as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, there's often a way to figure it out. Um, Other things I kind of mentioned before. Building up your time management skills are very important, because you're the one who's going to be managing your schedule, and you're going to be accountable to you. So that's something that I see a lot of people having to learn right at the gate. It's You can do it again, especially if you're passionate about it. Also helps to have teammates that you're working with where you can all push each other. It's Entrepreneurship's not a solo sport at all. There's lots you can't do it alone. There's too many things to do. So being intentional about finding who you want to work with, and who you think shares your mission and complements your skills, is also something that's really important to think about early on. But yeah, I think people should do it. It's a crazy adventure. Um, might suck more hours of your time than some jobs, but it's worth it.
You talked about time management skill and also about people management skill. So, what are the soft skills that are important for a managerial position in a startup? And as a science graduate, how did you pick up those skills?
I feel like I'm still learning, honestly. I feel like I'm learning every day. Um, yeah, let me think about that one actually. Um, so there's soft skills on lots of sides. So as there's the internal to my team, and then there's also like external with other stakeholders, or potential customers, people who are helping us with the business. And I think, I mean, it's kind of a cliche answer, but listening is an important thing for both of them, and making sure you really understand people's needs. Sometimes I've been better at it than others, but that's what is probably one of the most critical things. The other is like, just, I don't know if it's a soft skill or a hard skill, but just being able to set up structure for other people, and learning the skills to create frameworks that other people can take and run with on their own, and making sure that everybody's still on the same page. I think there's a lot of like work and intentionality that can go into that, and kind of creating shared meaning in the team. So that's really important to figure out as well.
So, you talked about having a mentor in the early phase of your startup. How did you find this mentor? And if you could share some tips about finding mentors outside of the
Hmm.
university, for example.
Yeah, so this winter came, we applied for and got into a program called the Clean Tech Open. It's like uh, incubator, I guess, for early stage clean tech startups, and it's all over the U.S. And so that was a really good fit for us at that point in time. And the mentor was probably the best part of that program. They take you through lots of programming, but they have a whole mentor network, and I was really intentional about trying to find somebody who would be good for me. So I went through their list of mentors, and interviewed a few people, and then found one who was a really good fit. So that was how I found it. And I think a lot of times that's the way that it happens. Like, we're located in St. Louis now, and I just somebody just told me that There was a mentor network in St. Louis that offers free mentorship for startups. Is usually more in like sales and marketing, um, but yeah, a lot of times going through other, there's so many support organizations out there. So if you go through them and kind of find the people who are doing kind of mentoring there, that's one way to go. The other way is just not being afraid to reach out to like cold call people and reach out if you find people on the internet who might have the right skills for what you're doing. If you want like a long-term mentorship or like relationship, is probably helpful if that's like something they do on a regular basis, but you never know. It could be industry leaders in the field that you want to work in. But just calling up people and talking. Most people are excited to be helpful, so it's not something to be afraid of necessarily.
We already, I think, talked about the importance of networking here. But if you can tell us more about how did networking help in building the startup, and it will be great if you can suggest useful networking strategies for the student.
Yeah, networking is super important. I love going to conferences. I miss conferences now that we're in a pandemic, and just trying to meet a bunch of people who are doing the same things that I'm doing, or who are at least related to what I'm doing. So that's one way that I meet lots of people. We also have always spent our time either in a co-working space or as part of like an incubator with a bunch of other startup companies, and then that tends to build a network of people who are thinking like you. Actually, that's very important. If you can have other startup founder friends who are going through the same issues as you, for some camaraderie, it's a unique environment, so that's important in and of itself. But then that also feeds into a bigger network, to reach out to people. um, I've also just I've kind of developed a skill to get in touch with people, but I found it's not as hard as you think. Just to, if there's somebody that you want to get in touch with, as long as you have like intentional questions or things that you want to learn from them or reasons to reach out to them, um, there's usually a way. There's usually a way to find to talk to get in touch with the person that you want to get in touch with. It always helps if you have some kind of personal connection you can reach out to make an intro, because people tend to respond faster that way. But also, I've been surprised how many people I know who are connected to somebody who knows the right person. So I go that way if I can. But if not, there's lots of friendly people out there. Or people, again, people are excited to be helpful. So if you have a reason to reach out to them, people are usually up for it. Um,
Thank you so much for sharing all the useful information about your startup and sharing your experience and career trajectory. It was great talking to you. Thank you so much for again for talking with us. Uh,
yeah, this was fun. Thanks for chatting with me as well.
yeah, thanks.